Hey everyone, on January 20th, pay a visit to our friends at the Park Theatre for Desi Subculture, presented by the Winnipeg Folk Festival. Tickets to see this global dance music collective are $25 plus fees through Ticketmaster and at the Winnipeg Folk Festival office. If you haven't spent your Christmas money yet, you need new sounds. Check out the first 2018 edition of Record Sundays on January 21st at Peg Beer Co. Come hang with Eye and Ear Control, Eat 'em Up Records, Dub Ditch Records, and Electric Heat Records, and soak up the sounds of the underground.
You're listening to Garbage Hill, Winnipeg's first podcast network.
Welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm your regular host, Sam. I'm here with all four members of Panicland. So I think, as always, when there's sort of a group setting, easiest way to do it is sort of go around the table, everyone identify themselves and their instrument, and then people can put a name to the voice.
Sure.
So we'll start right here.
I'm Brayden, lead vocals and guitar.
I'm Riley. I am guitar and backup vocals.
Travis, I play drums and sing backup as well.
I'm Ian, I play bass and backup vocals.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I think it's interesting that I'm talking to you in part because this year I've been trying to sort of branch out as far as the types of music types of artists that I'm featuring on the show. It would be very easy for me, and it was kind of when the show first started, to just sort of go with the same 6 or 7 punk bands over and over again. It's just because guys I already knew and were playing sort of styles of music that I was, very familiar with, could easily talk about, a certain amount of punk bands, rappers, folk singers, whatever. It was just kind of like, oh, this is simple. I know exactly where their influences are. I know where they're coming from. I've seen them play shows, that kind of thing. But I've been trying to branch out a little bit more. I mean, I had a classical group on a few weeks ago. I got really into the local jazz scene a little bit more this year. And what you guys do, I think, is another thing that's very different from pretty much everything else I've had on the show in the past. And, I mean, I don't know how you define it, but, I mean, just upon hearing what I've heard of your music, pop is the obvious...
Yeah, I think that's one of the best ways to describe it, because pop could be so many different things.
Yeah, it's very vague, but, I mean...
But we definitely fit into that category. And Ace Burpee hyped you up and said that's cool. What he liked about the show, that you get all different types of artists on.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool too, because I'm sure you probably noticed, and I'm sure listeners, if you get, like you said, a classical group, a punk group, maybe a pop group, you'll realize that even though the presentation is so different, the core thing that they're doing and that people are connecting to is the same.
Oh, absolutely,
amongst all these different genres and artists.
For sure.
Which is cool, because there's only so many human emotions, and different things may speak to people in different ways, but they're all connecting with the same emotions, right?
It's just a different package. The way it's delivered
it's a different package for different people. Yeah.
Well, the thing with pop, I mean, not to say that I haven't had pop artists on before, but it's always been kind of a hyphenated pop. It's been pop punk or synth pop or something else kind of attached to it. But you guys, from what I can tell anyway, I would kind of classify you more as just like a pure pop group. I mean, there's not. I'm sure there are other things that influence what you're doing that you could maybe hyphenate on there, but. To me, it sounds like just.
I think so. I think specifically the last single we did sounds very pop.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to use that to open lots of doors, and something pop or this pop, that pop doesn't open as many doors. It's a more narrow road.
For sure.
And I don't want our first impression to be a smaller box. I want it to be the biggest box possible.
Right.
Because then all these other types of pops are going to be welcomed, because the first impression set the tone.
That's actually interesting, because I think a lot of artists, especially that I've had on the show, are trying to go a lot more micro with that. Like they're trying to get into some specific niche, like something pop. Hyphenating it 6 times so they have a very very specific subgenre. But you guys are the opposite of that, which is cool.
Yeah. I don't like doing that personally. I used to want to do things like that, I used to stress over genres and things like that, because I'm sort of just wired that way. But I don't. I'm not a fan personally of doing things like that, because I think. Yeah, it just limits you a little bit more, and like we were saying earlier, like people just all connect with the same thing. So that sort of putting that sort of label on the music is that's for the industry to do it, so that people can consume it easier, and so that they can sell it to people easier. Right. So when artists do that, like it's probably in their best interest not to.
Right, to be as wide open as possible.
Yeah, that's more that's something artists used to not like when the corporations would label them. So I'm also partly surprised that artists do like to put those extreme labels on themselves, because those are usually, corporate business things.
I think it depends on the type of artist too. If someone is doing something so specific that it only appeals to, it's only going to appeal to a certain group, then maybe that makes sense. But,
well, yeah, I think so. Well, and I think in this day and age, though, everything is so categorized that it's like if someone's pop punk and purely pop punk, it makes sense to call themselves pop punk because it's easier to get added to the playlists or added to certain shows or something. Whereas if they classify themselves on something that's too wide, then it may hurt them if they really do want to focus and they know what they want to do in only that specific thing.
Sure. So, I mean, again, like I don't want to dwell on the pop thing forever, but I think that a lot of what you do, again, from what I've heard, which has been, you have a lot of stuff online. So there's a lot to dig into, which is good, and I kind of want to get into that, the way you promote yourselves in a minute. But I feel like it's kind of, I'm a little out of my element. I think I'm probably not the target audience for what you do, but that's the case often with when I'm doing these shows, right?
Yeah, that's my favorite kind of situation.
Yeah, so I mean, but one thing that I've noticed and that I'm really interested in kind of learning more about is the way you guys sort of put this together, because everything seems very DIY, but also very professional in approach and in presentation. And I mean, just coming in here, I've done 260 some episodes of the show, and it's very rare to have someone setting up cameras to film it going on. You guys are obviously very involved in just self-promotion and all of that in a way that's maybe different. I don't know if it's a generational thing. I mean, like, not to age myself, but when I was first started playing in bands, everything was, DIY zines and putting up posters for punk shows and basements and stuff like that. Yeah. And it was all super DIY, but now, because the way the internet is and the way it's possible to just kind of get yourself out there entirely on your own, it seems like you guys are maybe picked up on something that maybe older acts haven't or don't know how to do.
Or the older acts got there first and they didn't realize it. Because when I hear these stories of 1992, 1993, 94 Gilman Street and all that kind of thing, and how DIY they are, in a way that is what everybody needs to be now. But back then they were kind of going against everything, and it was their own thing. And right now you sort of have to do that. But we're at such a guinea pig stage with the music industry, where I don't think people realize the opportunities that they have with being DIY and being in full control of every aspect, because people still glamorize record labels and record deals, and which do make sense for some situations, because some people want to be artists and only artists. They're musicians, they're writers, that's it. They hate the business side, right? And so you don't want to then force them to do it themselves, the business side, because there's so much to it. If they don't want to do it, then they're just they won't last, And
that comes up a lot actually on this show as well. People who are really, really good on the arts front. I mean, the music's great. The songwriting's fantastic. They should be super famous, but they have no interest whatsoever in the business side of things, and it kind of holds them back.
Well, it's a sad truth. Like in reality, in the perfect world, if it would be purely about the talent. But I'm not one to say that it's not about talent and it's all about looks and business, because it's truly not. It's about, I think, having both. Like if you were the best artist in the world, you wrote the best songs, but you had zero business sense, then ideally that would be enough, but it's not. Ideally, realistically, that's not enough. And if you had the best business, you had the best team, you had the best writers, you had the coolest hair, you had the best looking, you had an 8-pack, it's still not. That's not going to do it. And I used to actually think when I was 17, 18 that with a lot of pop artists, it is it is more about the looks and the presentation, just because that presentation was so strong.
Well, it's so important too.
And it's so important.
You can be a jazz artist and no one knows what you look like.
Right.
But the sax playing is so important.
But I think what's commonly misunderstood is that it's not actually all that stuff that makes it. It's just that stuff just adds to it, and it's both sides are totally needed. So that's what I think about the whole pop presentation and stuff like that. But there's some artists who just when you look into even people like Justin Bieber, some of the most disrespected pop artists, but also respected in certain areas.
Depending who you're talking to.
Yeah, exactly. They actually work incredibly hard. So unbelievably hard to the point where it almost kills them, really.
Yeah.
They're deathly skinny, and they're a wreck, because of what of the work they put in, and I think just like the good looks and the smiling thing overshadows a lot of things. But I also think that phase of pop music is sort of dying out. Pop is no longer about, like the teenage girls and the teeny bopper thing, because that sort of thing happened when record labels were in control of everything.
Kind of the last gasp of that.
Yeah, they were the middlemen, so they knew what the teenage girls wanted, which was the guys smiling, going like this and stuff like that. And then so the girls did end up liking that because they didn't know anything else, because that's all they were fed by the label. So it was this back and forth circle, And now the label is no longer in the center. They're no longer the middlemen. The artist can go straight to the consumer. So now the consumer sees through all these cheesy things. So when pop artists are trying to keep this old thing going of like the hearts and all these cheesy things, the kids don't believe it. They don't buy it. And if they do buy it because they're young, in 2 years they realize this was all an act. This was all a gimmick.
And they'll move on to something more genuine, right?
Yeah, they'll move on, and they'll never go back to you again because you cheated them, you lied to them, and you made them feel stupid.
Hey, say my name. You're more beautiful than everybody else in the game. A good girl with a bad attitude, all dressed up like you Rihanna. Work in the room. Show me what you got. Let it go right off your tongue. Hit me with your best shot. Tell me out. I said, hey, so hit me where it hurts. Say my name like it's a bad word. Say my name like it's a bad word. Hey, so hit me where it hurts. Say my name like it's a bad word. Say my name like it's a bad word. Hey, every touch is a trap. I know you got the best of me, but the rest is up for grabs. So blah, blah, you my favorite noise. So baby, say my name until you losing your voice. Show me what you got. Let it roll right off your tongue. Hit me with your best shot. Tell me out. I said, hey, so hit me where it hurts. Say my name like it's a bad word. Say my name like it's a bad word. Hey, so hit me where it hurts. Say my name like it's a bad word. Say my name like it's a bad word. Show me what you got. Let it roll right off your tongue. Hit me with your best shot. Tell me off. Hey, so hit me where it hurts. Say my name like it's a bad word. Say my name like it's a bad word. Hey, so hit me where it hurts. Say my name like it's a bad word. Say my name like it's a bad word. I said, hey, so hit me where it hurts. Say my name like it's a bad word. Say my name like it's a bad word. Hey, so hit me where it hurts. Say my name like it's a bad word. Say my name like it's a bad word.
I've always associated, again, probably because of my background and stuff, playing in punk bands and things when I was a teenager, DIY has always been sort of really associated with punk rock for me. In terms of whether it's, something like this podcast. I mean, this is fairly punk rock in terms of bringing a recorder to someone's house or someone's car or someone's rooftop, whatever, and interview them. And making zines, making posters, all that stuff kind of ties together for me. And it's exactly what you're describing, but you guys are doing it from a very different stylistic perspective.
Yeah.
So how do you guys come to that? I mean, are you any of you from a background where you'd have more kind of involvement in punk rock and things like that? Or?
Oh yeah, we used to be pure punk.
I figured,
and not even like when we were a punk band, I was very like, I was 14, but I felt like, I don't even feel very different now than I did when I was 14. Like I didn't feel like a little kid, and I liked a lot of like, I hated everything else. I hated the radio. I hated top 40. I would say a lot of the things that I think are ignorant now that people say.
I think that's every 14-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I was probably a little extreme with it. You know, like, I hated everything. And Blink-182, Sum 41, I hated them.
Right.
Like, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I hated all the fake punk, and, like, I loved, you know, like, well, a lot of the 90s punk and stuff like that. The early, like who did I like? Like, some of the weirder stuff, like Pansy Division and stuff like that. Yeah. And Mr. T Experience.
All the mid-record stuff. Well, I mean, it was the Canadian version, but Lookout records.
Yeah, the Lookout record stuff, and like Operation Ivy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the more like mainstream, but not actually mainstream, but mainstream if you're deep in the punk world, like Rancid and Out Come the Wolves. Like, that's still one of my favorite albums, but that's because it's just made up of great songs. Simple as that. Has nothing to do with like punk.
No, that makes sense, because I was I don't know, 14 or so when that came out, and so it's. I'm assuming you guys are a fair bit younger than me, and
I'm 22.
Right. So yeah, it's cool that record particularly like transcends time. Right. I mean, it was new when I heard it, and I loved it. It's still one of my like Desert Island records, you know, because it's so good from start to finish. And it's always cool to hear people from different generations being like, oh yeah, the same exact response to it. Yeah.
Like, I connect with that the same way that I connect with Katy Perry. Because it's at the core, it affects the same things. It's a different packaging, like we were talking about. Yeah. But really, if you look at the definition of what music is, the actual definition is organized sounds.
Right.
And so that's a very wide spectrum.
Could be anything.
You know, there's like these symphonies, these long pieces, like an hour and a half long, and so diverse. Yeah. And there's world music. There's stuff that we've never even heard that's going on in Africa and stuff like that. And so when you look at something like even like Metallica and Justin Bieber, they're not that different.
No.
You know, when you look at it in the big picture, and it's some of them in a way they're sold to the consumers as like by the same people, but here are, like, they know that the Justin Bieber fans. Or they know that the Metallica fans will hate Justin Bieber, right? But half the time it's the same label and the same A&R guys selling it. Yeah. They just have the alternatives for the different people, but they're both reacting off of each other. Like, the Metallica fans are like anti-Bieber, but they like Metallica. Right. But Bieber is still affecting them just as much as Bieber affects his fans, because they're just reacting the opposite way. Sure. You know, so it all stems from the same thing, the same like pyramid, like. That's at the top, and that's why I even call like metal music pop music. It's all to me. It's all part of this very small area on this very wide spectrum of organized sounds.
That makes sense. I like that.
What's interesting generationally, I think, is that I think people that are growing up now listening to music, I think that there aren't really going to be like those purist people that are like, I only listen to like tech metal or something like that. Like, I don't think that those people are going to exist, because like even the kids that consider themselves pretty cool and don't listen to anything like, they still like love Drake, and like even the edgy bands that they like are like pretty mainstream, like would play like the MTS Center or something like that. So I don't know, I don't think that kids are gonna grow up like that, like in the future, because everything's just like so accessible. It's all in the same spot. Like, you don't have to go to one record store to get one thing, HMV to get everything else.
You don't have a special order or anything. It's just there.
Yeah,
exactly. It's all in the same spot.
The same screen, the same world.
Totally.
And we have access to everything currently and everything ever in history.
Yeah, which is crazy.
And that's a lot of stuff. And so people are like, they're just taking in everything, you know? Like, some people, of course, there are going to be the purists and stuff. And I think we, all five of us, we're probably more likely to meet those people because of the areas we deal in. But I think the average person will listen to Shania Twain and then go home and listen to like Fetty Wap.
Sure, yeah, that's not unreasonable. I think that's pretty normal, actually. Yeah. Do you think that kind of growing up in that environment where, you know, this is, I'm assuming for most of your teenage to adult lives anyway, this has been the thing, right? The internet's been there with the availability to get pretty much anything. Mm-hmm. Has that sort of helped you to develop the DIY thing? Because it's just sort of, there is no sort of central record industry the way there was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You just have being able to put your music out there and for anyone to hear it anywhere in the world. That's always kind of been there for you. Yeah,
because we're forced to really learn how people think and react to things, because it's so direct to the consumer. We don't have the middlemen of the record label and there's
no DJ describing it or whatever. There's no one trying to sell it. It's just there. Right?
Yeah, because the consumers are so in charge of everything, and we have to kind of gauge that a little bit, and it just puts us. It just like I think it just makes everybody smarter if you can handle it.
Yeah, it's like sink or swim for the self-promotion aspect of what you're saying with the DIY. Like all the social media stuff we do. I mean, like I came to the band late, but I know that you said that you hated all sorts of social media at the beginning stages
especially
of the
when
band.
we were 14-ish, yeah.
But then you just, like, if you don't do social media, like, you're definitely going to be, like, suffering, like, in some way or another. And so, as far as what we do now with the DIY is, like, I don't know, I would prefer to just, you know, just make the music and everything, but, just people, and not just kids, like, everyone pretty much, like, just demands to know like what's going on at whatever point,
and access to whoever they want to talk to too, right? I mean, like
yeah, totally. And like I don't know, it's just people are used to like I don't really want to say like they're entitled, but they're just used to like having everything all the time.
Sure.
So then if we go silent and don't promote ourselves, you know, like I say that in quotes because like it's not always like promotion, it's sometimes just like everyday random stuff. But if we don't do it, then we're just erased from existence.
Wait, they can move on to the next thing because they're done. Yeah, there's so many things coming at them at all times.
Yeah, like if you don't show up in their like Instagram stories or whatever, it's just like you basically died.
Right.
So
You got to stay on their minds, and also it's not that it's the norm because it's not the norm yet. I don't think it's understood by everybody how big social media is and how big it's going to become.
Right.
But it's basically like if there was a band in, let's say, the 70s, you know, a band like us but 70s version, and they were like, you know, I don't really want to be on the radio that much.
Yep.
You know, I want to, you know, sell sheet music.
They wouldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it's sort of the same thing now. Now it's like you can't be like I don't want to do social. Like everybody has to do social media.
Sure.
You know, like whether or not that's a good thing, like that's up to everybody to decide. But that's just the way it is, and that's just the way it's going. Because this is like this example I'm about to say is like a story I say sometimes of how in the 30s and 40s there was, you know, there were like reporters who would report on talk radio, not TV. TV was starting to, you know, come out and make its impact on the world, but it was sort of a fun thing. It was a toy. It was kind of the beginning stages.
Well, when it first started, only a few people had it, right?
Yeah, like not everybody had it. Nobody knew where it was going, how big it was going to become. So most people stayed on talk radio. Some of these guys left talk radio for TV because they thought this is going to blow up, and everybody else was sort of like, nah, you know, like if it blows up, I'll join. But the people who got on it early and saw where it was going to go, those are the people who ended up winning, and the people who wouldn't make the switch ended up losing.
Right.
And so right now
because they're trying too late to catch up.
Yeah, they're not doing it until it's necessary. So like, and by that time it's already too late. So now that's sort of the same thing. A lot of bands are stuck thinking in terms of albums, album cycles, release an album every 2 years, tour around it. And even though that's very enjoyable and appealing, and if that was the case, I would love it. Whether or not I love it doesn't matter. It's not the case. Like now it's about making that switch to social media.
Got scars on my arms from the night that we burned. Set colors on the red. We're taking turns. We laughed and we cried. Felt sorry for ourselves. Got lost in the night. And the shame that we dwell. Stay away.
you're saying, the album cycle is not the same at all, because now
No, it's pretty
individual
much
songs for the most part,
non-existent.
right? People are putting out like a single, and then eventually they'll release an album, but it's just
Yeah, but and I don't actually think that's a bad thing at all.
it's just a different way of
It's
consuming.
a different way, and it's actually it's how it used to be in the 50s.
with singles, yeah.
Yeah, in 50s it was all about singles, and here's your 7-inch, and here's the B-side, it's
Yeah.
whatever, and the album is basically a product. It's like a piece of merch that
Collection
you
of
can buy.
singles, basically, yeah.
Like the singles usually weren't on the albums. Actually, it was like if the Beatles put out "I Want to Hold Your Hand," that was during "Please Please Me," or was that during with the Beatles era?
I don't know, around there. But yeah,
It was
that
in between the
one.
two, and it was on neither album. Basically,
Right.
it was all the Beatles singles were singles, and then the albums were just a way to sort of cash in on the singles, but they didn't matter too much. And then it
Right.
took like the really kind of theatrical bands in the late '60s to
Seeing the
like
big concept albums. And
like
for
because
sure.
it started sort of with Pet Sounds with Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys, where every song was an original song, and the Beatles and the Beach Boys kept trying to one up each other, and then by like 1970 the album had been established. You
Even
know?
before that, you have people like Ray Charles, for example, doing concept albums where it'd be all songs about traveling, or his two country music albums he did, which are very, very thematic. But a lot of that too was like singles just compiled, right?
Yeah, they could still be creative albums, but they were still riding on the backs of the singles.
Yeah.
And by the time Abbey Road, 69, 70, by the time Abbey Road was out and stuff like that, it was like about the albums. It was an albums world up until pretty much now. Now it's going back to
Singles.
people still release albums. And as they should, but it's for a different reason. It's because people just need a lot of music.
Right.
So if they do release an album, they better release like a brand new single that's not on the album like a few months later, and then a bunch more singles, and then another album, and then
Right,
a
yeah.
mixtape. And it's just about nobody even cares anymore how it's classified, what it's classified as. If this is an album, if this single's from this, if
Right.
this is all connected. It's just like lots of music, which in a way I kind of like that because sure the artistic part of the album is done, where it's like every song is connected or has a theme.
Yeah.
But now it's back to great songs. It's just every song at its core has to be a great, strong song. Hopefully, because I still do think that it's the strong, really great, strong songs that really get to the top, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. How it's packaged is, I don't really care.
So it's funny. It's an interesting perspective actually, because like I'm 35, so I'm a dozen or so years older than you guys, and I still listen to 90% of what I listen to is physical media. I listen to records, tapes, CDs, and I listen to an album start to finish. Like I don't have Spotify or any of this stuff. I just don't do it because I have all my stuff at home. I sit down, put it on the stereo,
Right.
and listen. And I realize that's kind of a way that's fading out. I mean, there's always going to be people who listen like that, but
Yeah.
I mean, people who are even 5 years younger than me, that's alien to them almost. Like
It's not. No, I don't think it's ever gonna die.
No, there's
because
still
I
going to
think-
be like nerds who want to.
Yeah, but it's probably way less likely for kids who are 14 now.
Sure.
Because at least we caught the tail end of that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like when
Right, yeah.
So like we like everybody's into that. Like I used to reorganize my stack of CDs by like color and then by name and all these weird. Like I used to be obsessed with physical
I
music.
still do that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I amassed this huge collection like at the end of like junior high
Yeah.
school, and then like I only graduated like I guess 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
But like the same year that I was in grade 12, I think was when like Apple Music
Right,
came out,
right.
and then Spotify was like really popping off. And it's interesting how like my collection is pretty much like frozen since then because it's just like too convenient. And then when I listen to like too convenient like to use Spotify
Sure,
and
yeah.
Apple,
So you
it's
don't need
like,
to
why
buy all
wouldn't
this.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so then now like listening to physical music has become just kind of like a treat, like a little event. Like I'm gonna sit down and listen to this record, and
Yeah.
but before it was like,
That was the way
it's
you
thing to
the
do.
way you do it, right?
Yeah.
It almost seems like there's a comeback with vinyl coming back, and even tapes are making a bit of a comeback too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just young people who maybe missed out the first time, who are like teenagers
yeah,
now,
I
and they're
think
like, "Oh, cool! What is that? I want to see
It's
what this is
it's
like." Right?
cool. In general, like part of it is just because it's trendy.
Right, right.
It is a trendy thing. Like when you walk into Urban Outfitters, which is like one of the biggest corporations in the world,
Yeah.
as far as clothing and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and it's actually I think the highest. It sells the most records. Like
think
it
I read
sells
that, yeah.
more records than like record stores do. And that store is built totally on trends.
Sure.
And so people are buying it for trendy reasons, but regardless, it's coming back. And I often don't think that people are buying new music or new music on vinyl because it sounds better. I think a lot of kids say that, like, oh,
Yeah.
vinyl sounds better, but
What's a preference? Personal preference, really.
Well, it is preference, but it also depends on how the vinyl is made. Because
sure, a lot of that stuff is reissues and it's taken from CDs.
Exactly, like
CD,
that's worse than a CD.
Sure, yeah,
you're taking the digital file and slapping
it in an old format.
Yeah, because people complain if something was recorded on, let me pick a random album. Let's say Back in Black. If that was recorded to tape, which it was, 1980 it came out, and then if it was reissued in like 89 on CDs and then remastered in, let's say, like 2003, so that everything's louder and up to like the volume standard.
Yep.
It's like, okay, everyone thinks that's better. But then when they have new pressings of it and they advertise it, they're advertising it like it's a better thing. Like, oh, here's the new remastered version of the AC/DC album, the first time on vinyl. But all you're doing is you're taking the digital file, which has already lost quality from the original tapes, then taking that and pressing it to vinyl. The only thing that you're getting the sound of the actual vinyl, like the little pops and stuff like that. And just the way that your record player colors the sound, but you're not actually getting a more pure sound than the CD.
No.
Whereas if you're getting something that was actually pressed in the 70s or something, and you have a player from like it's not it's not a player like that, but it's legit.
Yeah.
Then you're getting the real deal. You're getting the closest possible thing to those original tapes.
Sure,
but I think a lot of the young people or older people, they're like, oh, I buy vinyl because of the sound quality. Unless you see an AAA on the back, then it's not true.
Yeah, they have a little $20 record player. It sounds like shit.
Yeah.
I think it's all valid though. Like I do want to say that because like sometimes these kind of discussions about like is vinyl better and stuff, it's like coming from a perspective of like this is good and this is bad.
Right, it's all good.
I think if someone wants to even if a bunch of the money's going to Urban Outfitters or whatever, if someone wants to buy this artist's album and if that's their way that they're enjoying it and having a special moment with the album is
I think it's
buying
great.
it and then putting it in an Instagram picture next to their succulent and their coffee or whatever.
Right.
If that's how they want to take that moment, then that's cool.
Sure.
And I totally respect.
Because some people just want to own things, it sounds so stupidly simple, but who wants to buy something and it doesn't exist? It's just on your computer. You're just buying the right to own it.
To listen to
you
it,
don't really own it. Some people don't care about sound quality. I actually personally don't. I like to listen on that little record player because my ears are exhausted from listening to the highest quality speakers.
Right. Yeah.
So I like to listen to the chillest, most cheap thing. Sometimes when I download music, I download how music used to sound on LimeWire, where it was low quality and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just because it's not as exhausting sometimes. But I don't even think people care too much about sound. Just the purest of the purists.
Yeah, there are people who their whole life is about getting that specific sound, but most people, it's fairly.
Yeah,
they
there's
want to hit the
other
song,
reasons.
They want to hit the chorus,
They just want to own something that.
Sure. Okay, so we could get away from all this because this is an interesting discussion. It comes up a lot on the show because, the people I'm talking to are from such different genres and backgrounds. I had Fred Penner on here, who's literally twice my age, and then you guys who I'm, quite a bit older than. So it's all over the place. And people's answers to that stuff are very different.
I've lost interest in most everything. I've lost interest in all sides of me. I've lost interest in hating. I've lost interest in waiting. Waiting to somebody reality. Why can't I ever find the major key? I've lost interest in knowing. I've lost interest in existing. Yeah. So write my
going back to kind of the style of music you play, I mean, you mentioned earlier you were into punk rock and everything when you were a teenager. And how did you guys become a pop band? Like, where does that come from? Because I think a lot of people, and we kind of touched on this earlier, have this idea that very, very pop music is sort of this manufactured thing, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, as we've discussed, you guys are DIYing it. It's all very genuine. But how did that become the direction you took?
I think a lot of it was kind of what you just said, like how people thought that pop was a manufactured thing.
Yeah.
The more we were involved in the music industry, the more we realized that's not true at all. Before we were even into the pop side of things, because punk music, I like punk not even because of what it represents, because I think in general, like, and this is a total subjective thing, but it's not the same. Like if somebody, the Sex Pistols were the Sex Pistols, they represented what they represented, they did what they did. Now if somebody does the same thing as the Sex Pistols and calls it punk, like it's not. Like
right.
it's the punk genre, it sounds punk, but the Sex Pistols did it. That's just imitating.
They're just copying the aesthetic.
Yeah, that's worse than Katy Perry. At least Katy Perry is making something new.
Right.
And then a lot of these punk purists are just recreating, what the Ramones or what Green Day did, maybe like 90s Green Day, or like Sex Pistols or X-Ray Spex or anything like that. It's like they're just recreating that, and like that is the total opposite of what mentality created punk in the first place.
Of course, yeah.
So like the whole thing was kind of making me sick, and then I just realized like at what I like out of all of that is just the great songs. I don't care about this mentality because I like the idea of punk, which is, DIY, doing what you want, thinking for yourself. And I think we have that. I think we have that as a band. We have the important part of that. And I think the other thing I like about punk is how melodic some of it is.
Definitely, especially the 90s stuff.
Like Dookie and stuff like that is just so... Dookie has amazing lyrics. Yeah. It's so melodic, and it connected with so many people, which was completely not respected, of course, in the 90s when that happened. But... it's impressive. Like when lyrics that were so specific to Billy Joe, but also everybody felt this is specifically me, but vague enough for everybody to relate to. And there's no theatrics. There's no long guitar solos. It's like it's getting out of that kind of like Bon Jovi, Motley Crue time, and it's a total reaction to that. And
it's a three-piece playing three-chord songs.
Yeah, it's just like three chords, and it's just great melodies, great lyrics that connect with most people. Sure. Right? And that's the element I like of it. And I like, so it's like we can take that into what we want to do, because I also love, Motown music, and Motown was so DIY. Motown was like punk. It was against everything, and there was race involved. That wasn't a great time for Motown music, but they conquered.
If you go to Stax in the South too, I mean, the same time period, same genre of music, that was even more punk rock because it was like very racially mixed. The groups were Teen MGs and stuff, right? And it was like even more shitty circumstances down there than it was, Detroit. Not that was great either. But,
it all came down to great songs, great melodies, great lyrics, and that's not exclusive to punk music. I feel like there's a lot of things that hold some punk bands back, and it's almost like Green Day didn't have those qualities holding them back, where like they were too proud, or they wanted to be so committed to the genre or something like that, and so like those things didn't apply to them. But when they took those qualities and eliminated everything that could possibly hold them back, it spoke to the world still. And so I like to go into a session or sit down, and if I want to record a song that sounds like Bieber, I'm going to do it. Right. If I want to record a song that sounds like Cheap Trick, which I did, then I'm going to do that. Cool. I'm not going to stick to some box that I put myself in because I call myself punk.
Or pop or whatever.
Yeah, or anything. But it's just, I find, like, I love the whole punk thing and I love where it came from, but I just find that a lot of the newer stuff and then newer mentalities, they're just kind of imitating the old ones.
Sure, no, I agree with that completely. I think that you say punk and people think of, like, the same 300 kids at every show with the exact same mohawk and the spike jacket and everything, versus someone doing something kind of subversive and original and sort of like unexpected almost, right? So that punk can be, I mean, I think you can consider a lot of electronic music being punk rock.
Oh, yeah.
In attitude, for sure, when it first came out, right? I mean, I think some country music is punk rock.
I think so, 100%. Like, I think punk was the actual genre of punk, like Sex Pistols, like late 70s, kind of early 80s kind of thing, that they were the first to be labeled punk. But really it was just what they were doing that deserved the punk label. Then when that established itself as like a genre of music, that is that genre of music that happens to also be called punk, but it doesn't mean it's that idea of punk. That goes to, you know, Kanye West.
Whatever the next thing is.
That's like completely innovative and brand new and setting a new trend and going against something. Okay. Or if it's small scale within something else, like like a Katy Perry or like a Bieber that's doing something that's not, like, in a way, and this will get so much hate, but in a way, Purpose by Justin Bieber was one of the most punk albums of that year, because before that album, on top 40 radio and mainstream radio, it was like a free-for-all. There were so many different songs.
Right.
Bieber came out with this dance hall feel. You know, and some others around the same time, like that whole little crew of people.
Right.
You know, but especially like Skrillex, Diplo, and Bieber with "Where Are You Now" and this dancehall feel, and then "Sorry," and then after that, they moved on. They did whatever. After that, everybody on the radio sounded like.
Sure, I can agree with that. I don't listen to too much pop radio, but I do listen to heavy amounts of dancehall, and have for like the past 20 years.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I was like, "What? Wait a minute! All these songs are like it's a dancehall rhythm, and yet it's some pop song or some some even like soft rock kind of thing going on. But it's like the beat is a dancehall beat.
Yeah, and someone brought that to mainstream. Now everybody copies it.
Right, and it's not dancehall anymore, but it's
it's taking
this thing that's taken that and made it into pop basically. Right?
Yeah.
To kind of answer your question, like from before about how we got here,
Yeah.
because that was like the initial thing away from punk. But as far as like how we got to like a really, really pop thing, like especially us like 2 years ago or something like that, it's just kind of like with this band, we're not like a band that's like, okay, like we need songs because like we need to do our album or we got a show or whatever. It's like the band completely like adapts to the songs. So like if Braden writes a song that sounds like Cheap Trick, or he writes one that sounds like I don't know, what's another example of, like Kiss or something like that, like some of the music we're working on right now, our sound just brings out what's best in the song, like in every situation. So like a lot of our music that we're working on now, that we're planning on putting out in the future, it's not like there's like this unified sound, like all the songs you would consider pop songs, just like structurally and like melodically and stuff, but we, like as a band and as Braden as a producer, like everything just adapts to the song. So like I think that's why we just with more pop songs, we just became like a pop band. Okay. So
is that kind of organically the sound you guys came up with anyway, just like through writing the songs and
like
so natural.
Definitely nobody was encouraged. If anything, we were being discouraged. Okay. Because when we were punk, we got an incredible amount of industry support, and we were given a lot of government money and stuff like that for grants. Then when we turned to pop, we got pretty much no industry support as far as...
It's almost the reverse of what you would think.
Yeah, exactly. That it kind of puts into perspective, you know, what, like, people don't really think that's what would happen, right? So, like... so then it's not that we didn't get any support after, but like nobody supported us doing the transition. Like they were like, "Oh no, this is you guys. Like you guys are punk." And like part of everybody telling us that we're a punk band and we got to do rock, or this is why we went the total opposite and like very over the top, the total opposite. And the songs dictated that 100%. Like they led the way, which is why we wanted to make that move in the first place. Okay. But like it was very like. It was like not a manufactured thing or anybody encouraging us to do it.
Cool. And you guys have a record you're working on, right?
Yeah.
When is that actually coming out?
Probably spring. Like it depends because it's a timing thing. Like which ties into like the it depends how it takes off on Spotify. The singles at first and all that. Because we just want to release it at the best time so it can reach the most amount of people. So first we're releasing a single in probably like January-ish, maybe early February. It doesn't matter as long as it's the best time. Right. That's when we'll release it. And then after that we're going to be putting out an album, which we're working on right now, and we're showing kind of every aspect of it. Like for a while we were sort of keeping it secret because most people do, and then it sort of clicked that like, why are we doing that? Right. You know, it's too many artists are keeping it secret what they're doing, and that's not how kids' brains function.
But they want to know what's happening the whole time.
Yeah, they want to know how it's, and I think it'll actually add value to the music because for us it's not about what it is. about it's not about what the final product is, which is the music. It's about why you're doing it, what we put into it, the reasoning behind everything, the thought process, the thinking. And so let's let everybody in on that. Let's show them like the thoughts behind everything, like as careerists, as artists, as everything.
Yeah.
Let's let them in on everything, completely unfiltered, not in like a cheesy MTV way where it's like, oh hey guys, I love you, but like talking just as intense as you want to talk, and just letting people into the process, because then when the album does come out and they do hear the album, it's going to be that much more valuable. Well,
they're primed for it too, right? Because they know what, they kind of have some idea of what the background is.
Yeah, because that's what people connect to. They connect to not what you made, but why you made it.
Sure.
What you made is almost irrelevant, because we could take all our thinking and emotions and what we want to do and turn it into a movie. If we had the skills to do so, and people would connect with it the same way. So it's like what we make is irrelevant. It's why we make it. So that's why we've been showing everybody this whole process of the whole album. And
it's interesting. We just talked about how like people aren't putting out albums,
right? And then you're doing it,
yeah. But I guess like that's kind of an interesting part of the process too, because like the only reason it is an album is because it was intended to be like, first it was like a group of singles that we were hoping to release. Then it was like, okay, maybe we'll do an EP, and then it was like, let's do 2 EPs. But then just conceptually, like the songs just kind of made sense as an album.
Okay.
So then, but then we have plans in the future for things that are like very not album, like small EPs, like tons of songs, like tons of content.
Which sort of goes back to the whole idea of releasing music is not the same as it was.
Yeah,
exactly. Like you can do whatever you want.
It's exactly within that, because I think as long as we can make an album, but within this modern structure, that's how we'll get away with it. We can't make it the album in the traditional album structure approach. We can take the single world and then do an album within it. And what I mean by within that structure is like feeding everybody all the time with this content and all this stuff, because whereas maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people were there was a line, the artist was here, and the crowd, the consumers, the listeners were on the other side.
Sure.
And the artist had this godlike status, and that was the appeal. They were this.
They're untouchable.
They were untouchable. Yeah. You could not touch them. And now it's the total opposite. People, some kids that are like maybe 14, 15, 16, they truly believe that the artist is their best friend.
Right, because they see every moment of the day.
They see, and they really think that they know them personally. And that's just as strong of a connection as the old approach. Sure. It's just complete opposite. And so now if we can release our music within that mentality and that structure, release an album, then I think it's like releasing an album, taking the old thing, which is an album, group of songs, and putting it in this new way of consuming things. And then as long as we keep putting out music after and just have it just kind of go on for a long time and keep feeding everybody after, but with quality stuff, then I like quality and quantity.
Sure.
And then I think it lets us get away with putting out an album.
Cool. So if people, obviously the album's not out yet, and when people hear this, it still won't be out, but it'll be kind of on the horizon. What's the best thing for people to do if they want to hear what you're doing? I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, you're kind of documenting a lot of the process, but where do people go if they want to find that? What's the best?
Like pretty much any social media platform. Like we keep them all updated, like throughout every single day.
Right.
So
I've noticed a lot from you.
We'll definitely it will be known on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, and it's all just Panicland. And also our YouTube, that's where we do our vlog series, the Panic Reels. So there's gonna be a bunch of stuff about
by the time people hear this, there'll be probably $1 million.
Yeah. We're at 30 something right now for the Panic Reel vlogs. Okay. And by the time the album's out, we should be double that.
Cool.
And
a lot of them have the process of doing a lot of the songs. There's little clips.
Right, the background sort of.
Yeah, studio and explanation.
Cool.
Yeah.
So is there one kind of hub where you can find all of that, or is it just going whichever social media?
Instagram is probably the number one.
Yeah, but really they're all so connected.
Yeah.
So if they went to Twitter, they would see all their reels there. I see some of them and have access to the rest.
Right.
And also but even before the album's out, we've been posting little clips of the music, like we'd mentioned before, and even songs that aren't going to be on the album, just in the process. So if even anyone checks it out now, they could at least get a little taste of it. Right?
Sure.
Yeah, and leave a comment, because that's what we've been looking at, a lot of those and seeing which ones hit it home with people.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's kind of just a fun little thing. We don't really base what we're putting on the album on that, but it's interesting to see. Like, what
Sure,
people
yeah.
think.
Get an idea of what people are thinking before it even gets to the release point. Yeah.
Totally.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Do you have anything coming up show-wise in the next few months that people, or should they just sort of stay tuned to your social stuff?
Probably just social media, because we're pretty much just recording for the next little bit.
Okay.
Even though shows are like really fun, they won't be as beneficial as recording right now.
Right, and then once you have the record out, you can...
Yeah, because when we do a show, we like to go all in.
Oh,
you know, like we rehearse, and
Yeah.
I don't want to half do anything right now.
Yeah.
Cool. If people want to hear more episodes of this show, they should go to witchpolice.com, click on podcasts. All 260 whatever episodes are there for free download and streaming. You can also hear the show on Sunday nights at midnight on UMFM, and those are older episodes that kind of get a second wind. So it's December now we're recording this. Might not air till May or something, but the cool thing about that is, we're talking about your album is going to be released. Maybe by the time they hear it on the radio, album's already out. They can just go right from their car or wherever they're listening to buy it, right? So it's kind of a cool way to sort of just get a second chance for these to be heard. But they're all available at all times on the website and on whatever podcast app you use. Apple Music, iTunes, Stitcher, all that stuff. So
Brilliant.
yeah. And anyway, thanks a lot for having me, guys. This has been
Yeah,
been very interesting. I didn't know what to expect again because the pop thing is not really my wheelhouse.
Right.
Obviously, I listen to a lot of music that has pop elements and is pop inspired, but I wasn't sure what to think. But this has been a very interesting conversation. So,
Yeah, I enjoyed it because I like talking to people with like the total opposite perspective.
Yeah, it's cool, yeah.
Not perspective, but from a total opposite background, because then
Right,
you
different
can
age,
you can
different
find
musical
where
background.
where they meet though. You can go
Sure.
down to the core.
There always is, right? Like when I
Yeah.
interviewed those classical guys, I was totally over my head. I have no idea they have a harpsichord, and
Right.
it was totally beyond me. But there was a lot of things that just they clicked. It was like, oh, cool, you listen to the same records I did when I was 15, and somehow you play a recorder.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
Yeah, so
That's
it's
awesome.
neat. Yeah. But anyway, thanks again for having me, guys. And everyone should
thank
check
you.
out your
Thank
album
you
when it
for
comes out, and check out all your social media for the videos and everything. And, all right, thanks a lot.
Great.
Awesome.
We're throwing darts at a map without a thing to say. Now we could pay the old school bus and live a thugly stay. We'll be in Hollywood by 9 and dancing in the streets. Let's fall in love, not in line, and live the teenage dream. Let's kick it like we're going to California. Ain't got nothing to say except for get me out of this downtown before I pick up all the pieces that I haven't found. She took the chains around my neck, had flowers in her hair. She said, I'll race you to the stars and back, but darling, that's not fair. Honey. If life's a joke, we'll be the punchline, the perfect mess, my dear. We'll be a couple bodies worn out by their souls, but honey, I don't care. Let's kick it like we're going to California. Ain't got nothing to say except for get me out of this downtown before I pick up all the pieces that I haven't found. Sing with me, I'ma sing pretend with me, sing with me, won't you be my friend? When the moon is finally dead, the little things are all we'll hear. With Coca-Cola colored hearts, I'll be a souvenir. Heard someone ask whatever happened to the seasons. our losers of the year. Let's carve our names into